Hello and welcome to The Boy and the Bear. I'm Stephen, mediator and neutral of this pod. I'm joined as always by our resident boy Paddy and bear Scotty. And just to add further fuel to the fire this week, we are joined for our end of season pod by friend of the podcast and Aberdeen fan Jordan. Welcome back, mate.
Thank you. Aberdeen, ole, ole, ole.
Right, can we cut his feed?
Well, listen, lads, it's a busy one this week. Rangers fans calling on Govan to become the 51st state. Aberdeen winning a Scottish Cup for the first time in our lifetime. Me being called a melt in the process, by the way. And Celtic fans acting like no one else is allowed to win trophies in Scotland. Let's get right into it. First of all, compliments, boys. Paddy boy, I'm going to come to you first, please, mate. Your compliment for Scott.
Well, the season's over, so there's not much football-related compliments to give. So, Scott, I thought I'd give you a compliment on a personal level. I know the last season has not been the easiest for you, but kudos to you for sticking in there every podcast episode and still showing up. It's not exactly been, there's not been much for you to celebrate this season, so a genuine, heartfelt thanks and kudos from me to you for doing that. And I hope it stays that way next season.
Thanks, man. It's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, to be honest. So that's very, very nice. My compliment to you is just James Forrest, obviously getting his record for scoring every season since his debut. But that's about it, because I'm done, because I've only got a few things more to say, boys, all right?
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
That's all I've got to say, boys. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, good God. To be fair, he's been waiting 2 years to have a moment like that, so we'll let him have one. We'll let him have that.
Hey, listen.
I'm just happy you didn't say congratulations on the treble, I imagine.
No, not at all. I thought you'd like to get in there, Jordan. That's...
I think it's the only time a Rangers fan's been happy to see an Aberdeen fan, to be honest with you.
There's only 2 fans on this podcast that have won trophies this season.
Well, gentlemen, let's keep
I will win Stevie's imaginary cup anyway, so it's fine.
Oh, there goes the piece. But we'll try and keep it going, lads. This week, for our Coming Piece section, we wanted to do a little bit of an Aberdeen edition by having Jordan on the podcast. So Jordan has the chance to ask each of us a question. So Jordan, who are you picking first, mate?
I've only got one question for all 3 of you, which I think might offer up maybe potential different opinions. I'm not really sure. So in the spirit of Coming Peace, I am trying to come in peace here. With David Ancelotti rumoured for the Rangers job, do we really think the Rangers manager job is a first-time manager position? Or should it be from someone who has experience and should have done success for other clubs?
Understand what you're saying. I think we've gone down that road with the experience before. You look at Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Knew all the requirements to be a manager at Rangers, previous experience of the league, knows the standards, expectations of Rangers itself, plus gone to other leagues, better leagues in Scotland, and won things. Came here, wasn't a huge success, got us obviously to the Europa League final, but then a disastrous Champions League campaign, disastrous league campaign. And then you look at our manager previously is Phil Clement, an ideal guy with all the experience in the world. Similar league, similar kind of, budget constraints at Rangers, and fell on his arse. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's a really difficult thing to pinpoint exactly what makes a good Rangers manager. I think gone is the time of a Walter Smith or an Alec McLeish, a figurehead of the club that does everything. I think we're now transitioning to a more modern approach, and I think we need to move with the times.
That doesn't mean you can't go. Like you would say, Brendan Rodgers is a figurehead.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is, for us, the question was the Rangers, is it a first time? And what I'm saying is, we've had the experience. We had, the last guy to win us the league was a novice. Okay, it took him 3 years to do it, but he was a novice as well. So I don't think there's a one single ingredient that makes a successful Rangers manager, because we've gone down that route as I said, with the previous two managers I mentioned, they had everything, the checklist. They had the buy-in from the fans, they had all the experience and nothing. So
Have you just to add to John's point? Have you seen any interviews with them at all, Scotty? Like,
I've not seen anything from Davide Ancelotti. All I've seen is the clip that was doing the rounds when he first got announced. I think it was Alex Iwobi. He was on a podcast. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but he was talking about when obviously Carlo was just in his office. He would do like the overarching manager thing, but it was actually Davide that was on the grass every day coaching the players. And I think Everton did look quite good for a period of time.
Dad says you've got to shoot more.
Aye, listen, my dad's told me that you're pish, you're getting benched. But no, I think, I just think if it is Davide Ancelotti, you don't, despite being Carlo's son, I don't think you're at the clubs that he's been at for as long as he's been at if you're not half decent or you've not got something about you. So,
your dad's not the manager.
aye, but I think that's a cheap. I think that's a cop out. I think that's a cheap slide dig. I don't think you stay at Real Madrid, one of the most elite clubs in world football, with demands if you're not good or you don't have, look how many divas they've got in that team. Do you know what I mean? Like egos, personalities. So my question, sorry, to finish off, I don't know, Jordan. I don't know if it is a first time or do you need to think outside the box now? Because as I said, we've gone down all the previous roads. I really don't know. I'm kind of excited, but obviously terrified at the same time. It's like, one of those, I've no idea how to feel because I've been down this road before. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. We've got a guy that knows how to win. And then I've been left disappointed.
Yeah, I want to come to Patrick, but I guess it comes from that kind of similar angle. I think Pat will come from it, whether he'll be worried by this or not. Where Gerrard did work, you have to say, because you gave him time to allow it to work.
Yeah.
But could you imagine Ancelotti comes and all he's got is, my dad gave me a job and it didn't go very well. I mean, you can come back to this whenever we put it out. Maybe it's 6 months later, maybe he gets sacked, or 8 months later he gets sacked. What are you going to think? Then it'll be, of course he was rubbish. Of course he wasn't good enough for Rangers. He's not proven himself.
Yeah.
So, Pat, I guess for you, do you think it should be Rangers or Celtic, really? Should be a first manager job?
If you're good enough, it doesn't really matter. It sounds like a cop out, but Celtic have tried it. I think once in recent memory, with when Neil Lennon got the job the first time, he'd never been a manager before, and he was undoubtedly a success in his first spell.
John Barnes,
a hard one from so long ago, but he was a disaster. But it's an unknown quantity, this one, as managers always are. I think I'd probably feel a little bit more worried if it was someone like Russell Martin, who, although he's been relegated with Southampton, at least he has been a manager before. He definitely has an idea of how he likes to play football, and then it becomes the question of, can he do this north of the border? It's funny hearing Scott saying, by all accounts, it was David that was out on the grass, because I'm sure that's exactly what they said about Beale. It's like, oh, it was Beale that was
I know. That's the thing. It's like that's why it's so hard to have any true worries or getting overexcited, or because such a mixed bag we've had in the last 10 years with our managers. Do you mean?
I think I was expecting with a takeover from Rangers to feel much more worried about the managerial targets. I have to say, Gerrard coming back, David Ancelotti or Russell Martin don't strike fear into the heart, to be honest. That's my honest opinion. I'll happily be clipped up and proven wrong, but I was maybe thinking you'd be a bit higher profile.
Would you be more worried if it was Gerrard?
Probably not. How many trophies has Gerrard won? One? Not really.
It's quite an important one, though.
Honestly, I honestly.
It was the most important one in your history, right? So.
Yeah, but you look at his track record as a manager since he's not exactly.
Well, this is why I think a lot of people weren't overly excited by him, and I think for a lot of people, Davide Ancelotti represents an entire new direction. He will not be a manager; he's a head coach. Kevin Farrell and Dan Purdy will be the ones that do all the recruiting for the players. He'll get a say, but I don't think he'll have as much influence as previous managers, if it is Davide Ancelotti, of course. But I think it represents a new position, pivot that Rangers are going down as a head coach. It's literally you're to go and coach all the players, pick the team, that's it. We'll do all the recruiting. You don't have to worry about that. And I think that's probably the best way, because it will allow us to create a pathway for our top talent. We keep recruiting top talents, or from south of the border, or from Scotland, this is probably the best way that we're going to be able to fit these boys in.
I think you're right with this, Scott. It's horses for courses, isn't it? I mean, if Rangers actually do get their act together and they put the structure behind it properly, then you would employ a head coach. I think the worry maybe is that there's maybe been a lack of belief that Rangers will get the backroom staff sorted. So you're always looking for that figurehead, like a Walter Smith, who would just drag the club through it, no matter who was in the background. So
I do think. Sorry, just before we move on, like I do think that it's only been 2 days since for 3 days or something since the announcement happened, and we've already seen a clear out of staff. We've seen a clear out of the board. With our new sporting director started yesterday, officially in the door today, and he's brought along the new technical director. And for the next 3 weeks or something, Niels Coppin is working with him to make a smooth transition. That's already seems more professional to me than the last 5-6 years. There's like a planning already gone in place. There's lots of things that have happened in the background. So I reckon the manager will get announced next, before, and then it'll be a domino effect from there, like with players that we've probably linked, and it just seems to be going much more smoother so far, like already, and it's only a couple of days after.
The Rangers are coming.
I don't think that. No, I think you can have your snide comments and jokes and stuff. I just think when you've been in the position we've been in, where it always seems to be a false dawn, always.
We've got a real dawn here.
Well, that's true.
Champion dawn.
European now. Teflon, is it? Teflon. I just think this represents. It feels different. It really does. It feels completely different. Of all, like I said, mentioned all these false hopes that we've had.
It doesn't feel like a Craig White or a Charles.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
This feels legit, and
yeah.
I'm on record as saying I think the takeover for Rangers is a good thing, and I welcome it. I did think, to go back to Jordan's question, I did think they'd maybe be coming up with managerial options of a slightly higher quality. But
we've talked about this, Pat. Like, why would you come to Scotland?
Yeah.
Over why, if there's so many clubs south of the border now that you'll get the money to do so, to take the job, but you'll also get quite a high payoff if it doesn't work out, and you protect your brand a little bit better. If you fail at Rangers, you're struggling to get a job back in.
I think to caveat that, Stevie, sorry, before we move on, I think on the flip side there is a lot of attractiveness to Scottish football. I think that's why we're seeing a lot more foreign investment, from America and stuff, because they've realised it's an easier market to get European football. So I think as a coach or a manager, that is the best way to a higher, selling point for yourself. Oh, look, I've actually managed in Europe. I can manage anywhere.
I get that, but the investment that's coming in is a longer term strategy. Being a manager is a short term thing. Now, the average get a job's 12 to 24 months. It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
We can all kid ourselves. It's going to be long term projects. Like, if you get offered to manage your job down in the Premier League, you take it, as Celtic fans all know too well about.
Well, we know about that as well. Do you mean with Steven Gerrard getting offered the Villa job?
I'll tell you one thing though. Any manager that's would rather go to England, because even if they do fail, they'll get a payoff, is not the right manager for Celtic or Rangers.
Yep, I agree. Well, look at that. We've done it again. We've agreed.
What's success next season for Rangers then? Are fans able to temper their expectations for the next 12 months if things look like they're done right behind the scenes, or has it got to be winning trophies next season again?
I think it can be a bit of both. I think as long as there is tangible progress, we are pushing Celtic close in the league, right? But things are better off the field. Say, we have a better recruitment strategy. We're having more hits than misses, right? We've progressed again into Europe, and we've won a cup. I would say that's probably success in the first year of this new regime. I think if we can make a profit, ideal. I think that represents progress right away off the field. But I think for most level-headed fans, it's just tangible moments, like just constant, like little wins here and there throughout the season. I think off the field is where we really need to focus for that long-term sustainability, which is what they came out and said in their joint statement. That is what they're here to do. Obviously, get us winning, but their focus is on long-term sustainability, and I think that's quite exciting. Yeah, because they're not just going to throw everything at it to get us up and then forget about it next season when we've won the league. Or I'm just saying it would be like
you say
incremental.
You say that and you're right, Scott, but that sounds lovely in practice.
It does, yeah.
We both
And
know
then
it's not going to happen.
no, the first fucking time
Let's move on from a fan that's dreaming about winning trophies to a fan that actually won a trophy.
Excellent.
Jordan,
You've been waiting for 2 weeks to say that, haven't you?
Celtic underperformance, or were just Aberdeen tactically spot on?
Well, firstly, it was easily one of the top 5 best moments of my life being there. One of those days I remember for a long time. I was very unlucky not to get tickets for the originally. I got added myself to the waiting list, and I got the tickets on the Tuesday. I had to move around a few plans, and then me and my niece went on the Saturday. And it just goes to show, for clubs like Aberdeen, you can never just write off a final, because obviously nobody gave us a chance. Hence, you've got the question of have Celtic underperformed or did Aberdeen overperform? So you have to go. You never know what's going to happen, and we absolutely did it. But I think it's definitely a mix of the two. But I don't think you can really be that harsh on Celtic. Aberdeen have played a strict 4-2-3-1 all season. 10 days prior to the final, did it again against Celtic B team, and we got beat 5-1. I mean, we got a man sent off. I think at the time it was 4-1, so it didn't really make a difference. It was in the last minute, really. You're kind of like, well, there's really no hope here. We've tried all season. We've got gulped a fair few times. 6-0 in the semi-final of the League Cup, and then we come out with a 5-3-2 formation. I thought it was very smart from Jimmy for once. So I could see immediately what he was doing, because we looked at the game 10 days prior, when my pal was looking at it. We left quite a lot of pace on the bench, and I was kind of like, we need our fast players to play to have any chance of winning these games. But clearly the demand was, we're going to try and stay in it, 60, 70 minutes, and then bring on someone to try and change the game, maybe steal the game. Because I think against Celtic the first time we got beat 5-1, we had Morris, Gay and Keskinen playing, and they probably just ran out, did really nothing, got tired, got replaced. So I thought the strategy of give Celtic the ball and let them see what they can do with it. Like, it wasn't as if we got battered, and it wasn't as if we battered them by any means. We barely countered them, we tried our best. And it just a flawless strategy. We brought on Morris, Daba, Gay, I think like the 81st minute, and then we scored in the 83rd. So I think it's a bit much to say that they changed the game, because the goal was really quite a poor one from Schmeichel. He was trying to really hit it probably 30 yards and just deal with it. And it was absolutely insane when he came on. Morris, he was down that wing and he caused you all kinds of bother.
Where did Aberdeen go from here, Jordan? I mean, does that kind of does it fill the appetite for the next few years? I mean, is the manager safe all the way through next season? I take it it's pretty untouchable, but from your point of view, supporting Aberdeen, where would you like the club to go? I mean, obviously Rangers takeover maybe makes second a distant possibility now, but another cup run, better performance in Europe.
Season. Like, that's the ceiling for us, winning cups. So obviously, in my lifetime, prior to the last 2 weeks, I've never seen them win the Scottish Cup. I mean, we saw the League Cup in 2014, a few near misses when Rangers were out the league, and we were constantly getting beat by Celtic and letting them get their trebles, but they beat us quite handsomely. Trophies will always be what we want and what we need. You don't have a celebration for coming third. There's no family days out that we're the most successful team at coming in the top 3 in Scottish flight. So in preparation for this, I had a look at over the last 35 years since we last won the Scottish Cup. We've came top 3, including seconds, 11 times out of the last 35 seasons. Hearts have done the same. We got relegated twice. Hibs done 5 times, relegated twice. So that is saying we're probably the most successful third team, you'd say, in the last time. But who cares? No one cares. You don't remember coming third. I couldn't tell you any of the seasons we came third, apart from the recent ones because it's recent memory. But days like that are all Aberdeen fans want. We've been denied of it for far too long. And you mentioned on one of the podcasts before, you were getting kind of bored with Celtic winning, and you asked Paddy if he ever got bored of it, or did you ever get bored of winning? Is Scottish football boring? From the day I had, I can't see how you ever get bored of that. Honestly, fantastic. From minute 1 to minute 90.
Jordan, like, I want to preface my questions to you by saying congratulations. Honestly, like, if it wasn't going to be Celtic winning the cup, then I'm glad it wasn't Scotty celebrating it.
Oh, don't you worry. I was celebrating for the first time in my life. I was celebrating Aberdeen. And don't you worry. As soon as I turned my phone on, I went for a hike and then came back and I was like, brilliant. Thanks, Jordan.
It's great for an audio only version, but Scott was celebrating there. No, touche, Scott. Fair enough. I think Aberdeen deserved to win the cup overall, but ahead of this recording tonight, knowing that you were coming on, I for the first time watched the highlights back, and I don't know if there's ever been a Scottish Cup final where it's been 2 own goals like in the 90 minutes that have
no saves in 90 minutes.
Yeah,
no saves.
It was a really weird,
That's crazy.
A really weird, scrappy game. I forgot that Celtic had hit the woodwork twice, and Maida missed a 1-on-1. I had blanked all that out because the pain of losing the final was brutal, and it's a useful sort of reality check for Celtic fans. We've not had it in a long time, so to echo your point there about saying like what it's like to lose in a final, what it's like to win one. It's you can't beat it when you win it, and honestly, there's no feeling like it when you lose it as well. But I wanted to ask you, because it wasn't a great game, and Aberdeen, like I listened to the commentary just before the Schmeichel own goal, and Michael Stewart literally says Aberdeen are still in this, but they've offered absolutely nothing, and then they score. So I wanted to ask you, do you think Aberdeen were actually good? Because I don't think Celtic were.
I think we made it very hard for you to play the way you normally played, which kind of have been moaned at before for, I guess, the Goodwin era, trying to win a 0-0 against you at home, and it was absolutely painful. But I guess it was just different at the final. We getting pumped 5-1 beforehand was like, we really have no chance. The best chance we play in is just play to win a game of football. We're not there to be dazzled. We don't really care if we win 4-0 against you. Just be pragmatic. Like, we got through a phase where I don't know how many corners there were, but when we got a corner in front of our fans, it was like we'd scored. It was this is it. This is the equaliser. We're tall as you are. We're taller than you. Put it in the right place and then have a bit of contact, and we can score a goal. And it's the anticipation through each time. But it was almost watching it and being realistic as a fan that this is how we win the game, or this is how we don't get embarrassed. Because you got 6-0 in the semi-final, 5-1 in the league beforehand. It could be anything. And if you ask any other podcast or fans outside the stadium, the score predictions weren't exactly favourable. It was every Celtic fan was going 6, 7. What's the record at Hampden? They were asking these type of questions of we're going to absolutely batter these guys. So for us, I imagine for the neutral, maybe for you, it was awful to watch. But for us, it was excellent. Like, do you know when you win a header from a defending corner, or you block a cross, it's like if he gets past him, he's got 3 cutbacks. We were celebrating them like goals.
I will say, before I move on to my next point, that Aberdeen's penalties were incredible. Like,
that was the worst.
Unbelievable.
They were ridiculous. And I remember turning around to my brother, because I watched it with my brother and with Steve actually, and just saying in extra times, I don't like this. It's gone. And sometimes you can just tell there's a tangible shift. And I was like, I just don't feel like this is our day. As soon as
when McGregor missed the penalty, you were gone. Like, you were away.
Yeah.
Well, the celebration we had for that was almost like, you know, we broke into song for ages and we didn't stop until Shinny put the ball down. I'm like, guys, if he misses, it means absolutely nothing. Everyone was erupting. It was like a special moment. But it was definitely a case of extra time. You're deflated. You feel like you've lost the final before you even had a chance to win it. And we feel like we've almost like won the moral vote, where we've dug in and we've done a great performance. So we're elated at penalties. We might win that. But you're thinking 30 minutes wasted, probably.
Yeah. And sorry, I will hand over to you, Steve, in just a second. But I wanted to quickly ask, like, we talked about like fine margins in football and Celtic hitting the woodwork. If I mean, it's it's almost pointless asking it now because you did win the cup. Do you think Jimmy Phelan would have been sacked if he'd lost it?
100% no. I mean, I had this discussion with Stephen a few times. I'm, as a fan, delighted with that season. That's the best we've had in a long time. But all we need to do as Aberdeen fans is avoid Celtic, and we've got a great chance. We think we're not as good as Rangers really, but on our day we definitely back ourselves. It's basically become the derby where we can just have a different atmosphere probably. But we got beat in the semi-final of the League Cup that we've not been to for a while maybe, or we lost against Rangers last year I think. And again, it's against you lot. You're the best team in the land. We struggle to beat you any day of the week, even on finals, especially on finals. So semi-final gone out to you, final all the way there, and again we come up against you. I mean, if we had St Johnstone and got beat, that would be quite contentious. But as I was saying, like, third doesn't really matter. I mean, if you look at the split, nobody moved after the split in the last 5 games of the top 6. Coming fifth to coming third, for me, doesn't really mean anything. So it's like, maybe it's a bit of money financially not getting into Europe, but for me as a fan, it's all about the cup. That's the only thing we can realistically win. If we compete well in these, and don't come ninth, I mean, it's a bit embarrassing if we don't make top 6, but you can see what Hearts, if they're in Europe, every team falls into bottom 6 in the season they have Europe. So be a bit pragmatic with that. So for me, no. he was in no danger at all. I know he had a poor season, but everyone's saying how great the Hibs manager is. He had the exact same season as Thielen, but in reverse. And we're all applauding him for like manager of the season. Thielen didn't even get voted for or into the contention for it. And he got to semi-final and a final by that point, ended up winning it. Looks great now. But for me, if we got beat 6-0 by Celtic in the final, what would you say? I mean, they're better than us. You wouldn't really say it's his fault.
Do you think though that he might not have got sacked straight away, but do you think he would have been under huge pressure for the first 6 games going into next season? Like, it would have been that sort of feel to it, where it was you're now going into the season with a massive buzz, and he probably would get most of the season, if not all of it, just on what he's done. But was the feeling starting to turn between with Aberdeen fans, or was it just complete 100% surety he's the man to take that club forward?
No, we play excellent football. He's recruited really well. Like, there's no player he's brought in that we're like, he's rubbish, waste of money, or we had better before, why did we let them go? Love the way he plays the game. Like, if we're not going to win much, we're not going to win the league, there's a way you want to play in the season, or else why am I paying 30 quid to go and watch a game?
Yeah.
Why don't you go see defend against Injury River home?
Yeah.
I don't.
I wanted to circle back to the first point you actually made there, John, because you said you didn't know till the Tuesday before the final you were actually going to it. How did that work? What happened there?
Yes, so we got an extra 1,000 seats allocated. Obviously, the first 20,000 went within, I think it was 2 hours of being released. I think we were actually on the golf course, Stephen, and I forgot they were being released that day. So when I went back home at like 6 o'clock, it was like 10 a.m. till 12 p.m, so I was well late. And I'm like, what can I do here? Tried to scan one online, see if there's anything still there, and it just said, add your name to the waiting list. I didn't get any acknowledgement. And I was like, oh, it's not going to happen. And then Tuesday, they left me 2 voicemails. Phoned them back. They reserved 2 tickets for me because that's what I asked for when I tried to get them, and said, we'll hold them for 24 hours. If you don't get back to us, they'll have to be released. So I phoned them back, and then that was us, set up and done. So we've got more allocation than, Aberdeen fans don't travel to Hampden on half 12 kick-off on a Saturday.
Do you know, that's just absolute nonsense though. Like, I mean, you're probably lucky enough you live close enough where you can get yourself down, but a lot of Aberdeen fans stay in Aberdeen. Can imagine saying to someone on the Tuesday, a lot of them wouldn't have been able to make it if they'd been offered the tickets. Like, why is it not just
we easily could have? It wouldn't be a stress.
Is that not just a situation though where the allocation should just be done day one and then that's it? Like, why an extra 1,000? Like, where did they magic the 1,000 tickets from?
Yeah, I don't know, but I asked that at the time. I assumed it was a handback cancellation, or like somebody couldn't go. But they had an allocation of 1,000. They had, I don't know why. But I'm not complaining. I had the best day ever. So if I didn't know that, rather than into the waiting list, I would never have known. They would never came available to me.
Yeah, Pat, you've obviously asked Jordan a couple of questions about the manager's position and squad, etc. Where does this, and it seems like an absolutely ridiculous question to ask because you've won 2 trophies this season, but where does it leave Celtic? I mean, is there now more eyes being cast on that squad in general because of that one result?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's not just that one result. I think it's, since the turn of the year, it's definitely been a season of 2 halves for Celtic. Brilliant football at the start of the season, great performances in Europe, minus Dortmund. And but there really has been a shift, and there's been a few bad results in a row. If it wasn't for James Forrest's amazing moment equaliser against St Mirren, then that would have been a 1-0 defeat to St Mirren at home before before getting beaten a cup final. I think the result changes what could have been a great season to a good season. It's when you're potentially 90 minutes away from getting the job done and getting over the line, it does feel like a massive disappointment. And for ages, people were, and myself included, were saying things like, we can't really criticise this team or the manager because, we're on for a treble. So when you don't win the treble, you do then sort of, you think back to losing to Barry Ferguson's Rangers at Parkhead and some really shoddy performances against St Johnstone, and actually going, wait a minute, we have been a bit crap for a little while. So I think that we do need a refresh in the summer. I've got a list of ins and outs here.
Of course you do.
I'd happily see the back of Yang, Bernardo, Taylor's going anyway, Nawrocki, Trusty, Scales, and then you look at the players we've got returning from loan.
Sorry, the Irish Maldini. You're going to get rid of the Irish Maldini. Oh my God, man! Wait a minute.
I love when Pat does these lists because 3 of them next season will be in the PFA, the SPF Team of the Year and stuff like that.
He can play for Barcelona. He can play for Barcelona.
The returning loans we've got are Louis Palma, Adam Montgomery, Kwon, Tillio, Oden Thiago Home, Lagerbielke, and Welsh. So you tell me that there's not a massive refresh needed. There absolutely is. There's a core group of players at Celtic I want to see staying. Kieran Tierney coming back is obviously a brilliant. That'll be great. He'll be the best player in the league if he stays.
For the 3 games, he'll be fit before his leg breaks or something.
You keep telling yourself that, Scotty.
Mate, I said that. You can clip me. I said that months ago. I'm not terrified of Kieran Tierney coming back. He's never fit. Never fit.
But in order to, you've named players there though that collectively, let's be honest, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not low millions, in return for actually getting them at the door. It's not going to be enough to rebuild the squad, though, is it? In terms of getting the 3-4 players in, is it time for Celtic to maybe cash in on one of the 2 of the big guns to refresh that as well? And if so, if I gave you a choice of like a Cameron Carter-Vickers or Hatate or Maeda, are any of those players that you see not being at Celtic next season?
I would be stunned if all 3 were still here next year.
Who's most likely to leave?
Maeda, after the season he's had, top scorer and all. He scored 32 goals this season.
Wasn't top goal scorer in the league. That goes to Scotty's favourite man.
But he was Celtic's top scorer this season, is what I'm saying. And
big CD 9. Do you want to buy him, mate? 15 million.
He's the player I'd be most gutted about leaving, but I also think he's the most likely to leave. This is why I make such a noise about recruitment every single summer, because you look at the amount of players we now need to move on that haven't played at all for Celtic that we spent decent money on. This is why we're always in this cycle. We never seem to be building from a position of strength. It's always the squad's tired, it's desperate for a refresh. We need to sell a couple of our big players, and the circle continues.
Do you think you're selling them? Or do you think they want to leave? When you mentioned you'd be stunned if the 3 of them were there next season, do you think they want to go?
I reckon the only one that properly wants to stay would be Carter Vickers. And even then, I think the only reason he's not moved on to a bigger club is because of his injury record. He's clearly too good for Celtic in the league. It's not been his best season, but he's, aside from Van Dijk, the best centre-half I can remember at Celtic for, maybe ever in my life.
You need him for Europe. You don't need him for the league. Watching it against Aberdeen, it's like Scales did absolutely fine because we did nothing against you. It's almost too big a talent, doesn't need to do anything domestically, but when you have all the pressure on Rodgers that you must succeed in Europe, you need guys like him.
Rodgers put that pressure on himself. He came back and said, I am here to make a mark in Europe, and I think he has done that this season, which is why the Scottish Cup final is such a shame, because it could have been an outstanding season, polishing off with the treble. But I really hope it does, stop that argument every year of, it's boring. It's so easy to win a treble. Celtic always mop up, because it's not easy. You see how these 90-minute games or 120-minute games you can lose. And the last thing on Celtic season I want to say is there's also been a lot of ridiculous comments online about Callum McGregor, and I just thought in 2025 we were past mocking men for crying, but here we are. But that see, those tears is exactly why Celtic have been so successful, because the guy's never lost a cup final. He loses one and he's inconsolable, and that is why Celtic have been successful. So loads of love and respect to Cal Mack. I think he's an absolutely great captain for Celtic, and he's indispensable. He's in my in list.
Is he? But they're the people you have to start looking to replace. So, Pat, what age is Callum McGregor now? 31. You don't want to be seeing a 33, 34-year-old Callum McGregor start to struggle in a Celtic team, do you?
No, hopefully we can manage him like we did Scott Brown. I think Scott Brown had his best season for us when he was 32, 33, so that's quite reassuring. But yeah, you're right. I've said it a few times. I don't know who the next, Scottish born and bred linchpin in midfield is for Celtic.
You might play Kieran Tierney centre mid.
Go for it.
I don't think you need to worry about his age. I mean, you only worry about pace at that age. He's not really got any to begin with.
Nah.
So players always just sit and control the game. You just need to be mobile. Like we've seen Pirlo. How long did he do it for?
It's probably It's probably the reverse of your argument. I can't believe you said that.
Barcelona, Pirlo, Celtic.
That's the cycle, mate.
Oh my God!
I'd take a second to digest that. It's probably the reverse of what the argument you made for Cam and Carter Vickers or Jordan, where it's like Cal McGregor probably will continue to get away with that domestically, but maybe not Europe at an age of 33, 34. But yeah, listen, as a neutral, I agree with everything you've just said there, Pat. And it was actually quite reaffirming to see him that inconsolable, because it does mean that much to someone, and it always should, playing for a club that big in Scotland. And it's the argument we always have on this podcast that a lot of people don't take Scottish football seriously, but there's someone that actually does, regardless of how many trophies he's actually won. So
I looked at him like sobbing on Brendan Rodgers' shoulder, and I was kind of like, good, like that's exactly how I want a captain to be feeling after missing a penalty. Like that's great. That's a sign of strength and a desire to win. Like that is exactly the hunger that we need next season. So and I couldn't believe that, seeing people slating him on. Well, of course I could believe it. I just think it's still, Rangers fans mocking Cal McGregor is exactly why your club's winning very little. I
mean, it's funny. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm finishing the penalty. Like I will take a lot of pride and joy in him missing the penalty and then crying. But I understand your point about 2025. It's important to show your emotions. It doesn't mean you're a weaker person or anything, not at all. But from a rival point of view, hilarious.
It's kind of funny having seen the Old Firm complain about recruitment and getting players in, because the money just spent, you buy £9 million Ida, £11 million Engels, and it's, they're not good enough for us. That's 20 million. That's literally half or double the worth of our squad, pretty much. But I got a few good points from Celtic fans after the game. Once the dust had settled a little bit, where going from we'll win 8-0, it moved back to like, well, you could really see it coming. To be honest, we've not been good for a while. Where it's kind of like, because you'd had the league sewn up already, you've done really well in Europe, and you're going for this treble, it's hard to criticise. But in 2025, the turn of the year, you dropped 18 points in the league. That's enough to lose a league in every single season, but because of just, I guess, Rangers' faults, it's gone under the radar. It's been every time you drop points, so they drop points this Sunday, whereas we were. Maybe your squad isn't as good as you think it is, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. Dropped 18 points in the league, and you still had people complaining about Celtic's success and how boring it is, rather than looking inward. Did we not win the league? Much more than that. If they just had their shit together, they probably could have overtaken us.
The thing is, that's what we said that a few episodes ago. It's like, you dropped 11 points since the turn of the year Old Firm game. You'd dropped about 11 points or something between that and like Barry's first year. Do you mean, so if we had actually gotten our act together, it would have been a lot closer.
See, to be fair, Jordan, if Aberdeen hadn't completely crumbled, you probably could win the league as well.
Well, it's not just been Callum McGregor receiving comments online this week, boys. It's been quite an interesting week on the Boy and the Bear socials. And what I've asked the lads to do, Jordan included, is pick one of our latest TikTok videos, and maybe one of the comments that you have an opinion on, and let's talk about on the pod. So, Pat, I'm going to come to you first, please, mate.
There's a comment that we're getting quite often. Well, not that often. Like most of the people are, offering their own ideas or being really constructive in their feedback, which is exactly what this is all about. And obviously, this is going to happen when you start a podcast called The Boy and the Bear. But see, the comments where people are going, "Oh, a Celtic fan and a Rangers fan talking to each other, that gives me the bog." I'm like, really? Like, do you not listen to like the radio when ex-players talk to each other? Like,
an open goal
podcast where the whole point is different fans talking to each other, like. In the entirety of football media, that is other groups of other fans or ex-players talking to each other, and I just find that so boring. But that's like the reason we're doing this, because as Scott's just said, he takes great delight in Celtic losing, and I take great delight in Rangers losing. But it doesn't mean we can't try and have a conversation about it. So keep them coming.
I keep them coming. Yeah, and
we'll just keep doing this.
Jordan, enjoyed any of our content that's been shared this week? Any opinions on it at all?
Oh yeah. One particular one piques my interest.
We could not have recorded that. By the way, I could not have recorded that at a worse time. Like, part of me was celebrating with Aberdeen winning the cup, and then that part of me has been like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get absolutely slated now."
Do you seriously think a tin pot exclude the Old Firm trophy should be added as a third domestic trophy? Let's go through the points of why that's ridiculous. Broadcasters, so one, no interest, which means no money. So the fixture list, it'll negatively impact any team that's in Europe. So let's face it, Aberdeen, Hearts, and I guess this season, Dundee United will be the ones who'll be touted as the favourites for these competitions, the ones that will be deemed as the new big two or the new big three, and then the quote of should win it. And they've already proven they don't have the squads to compete domestically and in Europe. And you've mentioned on one of your most rated TikToks that you mentioned that you want to see third and fourth place not shit to bed in Europe. So another trophy where they're expected to win that, have another 6 or 7 games thrown in, doesn't really help that narrative. And never mind the fact that it's completely anti-competitive and beating Rangers and Celtic is part of the massive enjoyment of winning these cups. About you have every right to win this just the way we do, and we did it. Get it up you. That's part of the winning part.
Understand all of that. First of all, I'm not talking about replacing any of the existing competitions, so you'll still have your chance to beat Celtic once every 35 years. So there's
a third domestic trophy, so I recognise
there's no issue with that one. Secondly, if you look back over the last 20 years, third and fourth place, regardless of who it is, have shat the bed in Europe. That's just a fact. Like, Scottish teams out with Celtic and Rangers haven't performed in Europe. So
I'd say except Aberdeen this season, you beat Frankfurt at home. Someone called me out on that on
away.
TikTok. And
was that away?
Yeah,
anyway.
we could have won that last game and we would have been qualified into the knockout.
Yeah, could have, would have, should have. You didn't. My points were around the fact that we have to give teams out with Celtic and Rangers the tools to be able to compete long term. Now, this wasn't like some short term strategy. We just throw a cup in and next season Aberdeen are going to get to the knockout stages of the Europa League. It was never like that. So it was basically around the fact that if you look at Celtic and Rangers around the globe, I think Celtic are the second most successful club of all time with trophy wise, and Rangers are fourth. I think between them, they share over 60% of the audience of Scottish football fans on attendances, but Glasgow only makes up 11% of the Scottish population. So there's huge disparities in the ability for Hearts. Let's just take Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen. There's huge disparities in those clubs who are based in cities and big areas where there's a large population to actually thrive. And my whole argument was, how do you get those fans back in the door? Now, you said earlier in this podcast, chuck all your thirds in the bin. What actually mattered was winning that trophy. That's why you support football clubs, to win trophies. You don't support football clubs because once every 3 years you finish third and you get 2 Europa League games and happy days. You're there to win trophies. And on your broadcaster point of view, I'm not saying we go to the broadcasters that are there. We live in a day and age now where YouTube might take it on, and like a Netflix might run it as a series or a documentary. It wasn't a whole well thought out idea, but I think there's a basis there that we can build on, and I don't see why ideas like that should just be chucked in the bin, because the current reasoning for why we have a split in Scotland, so teams can give Celtic and Rangers 3 of their stands at their stadiums so they can get on TV in extra time, so that Rangers and Celtic can still dominate. It's just all geared towards Celtic and Rangers. And as we watch the game south of our border just continue to grow, we're just continually shooting ourselves in the foot. And if you don't think that these new owners that are coming in from Celtic and Rangers' point of view are just going to continue that and leave the Scottish game behind and fully focus on European football, we're living in dreamland, and we need to start looking after our domestic game. You will still be playing Celtic and Scottish Cups. I'm not taking that away. But by having this other competition and bringing more revenue into these clubs, you'll have more of a chance in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years to actually beat them in finals, to beat them in semi-finals. So it's not once every 35 years. I mean, John, that's the first time in your life that Aberdeen have won the Scottish Cup. And you're the third most successful club in Scotland.
That you've put together, how does that achieve any of that? There'll be no money there.
Why would there be no money there? I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. It's not. You're saying there's no money there. Yeah, I'm not saying there'll be money there day one, right? But over the 10-year period, if you got more people to support Aberdeen, or more people to attend stadiums, more Aberdeen members, that's revenue to the club. The more ideas we have between Scottish fans about how we close the gap to Celtic and Rangers, the better. Like, I don't understand why we just go, oh, he's an idiot, or he's a melt, or that's stupid, or this or that. Like, we can talk about it.
Point. It should always have ideas put to the table.
Yeah, come
just
up with solutions.
Don't think it's the answer. That was all that point was about. You shared a comment with me from one of your fans on one of your TikTok comments of back in the day. There was no real TV rights. There was no phones. It was you went to the team that you were closest to, and that was your team. And if you got to a final, it might be on TV, or you made that big trip to Hampden. Where these days it's a Sky subscription fan base that you really have. And everyone wants to win, and it's very easy to sit at home and just watch Rangers or Celtic, because that's really all who the broadcasters want. And every single I want to win, you want to pick one of them. So that's the dynamic of where the world's gone. But
yeah. But listen, it was just an idea, and I'm sure, and I'm happy to keep receiving abuse about them. But Scotty, I'm gonna come to you, mate.
Yeah, it's kind of just on the back of your comment. It's also tying into like what something we mentioned in the last episode about like a kind of joint like UK or kind of cup thing. It's like this user, it's a bunch of digits, and I'm not going to say it, but he said
Is it
basically
Annan?
split. It's not Annan actually. It's just user and then a bunch of numbers. But so Annan's gone to sleep. So it says split the top league into. I'm assuming what from his comment he means like combine the Premier League, all the clubs together in the UK, and provide this like Premier League North, including North of England and Scotland, Premier League South, including South of England and Wales. Season ends in a playoff. So don't know if you do something like that for a cup competition, or I don't really know how that. But then that would add even more games to the. Do you mean so? Is it a case of like you work out some Scottish brackets and you have like 3 or 4 representation from, or 5 or 6 teams, sorry, from Scotland competing against 6 teams from England or something? I don't know, but it's an interesting concept to try and add something different to football in general. And I do agree, like just to back you up there, Steve, I do. It's funny, obviously you're getting abuse. It's quite funny, but I do agree that something has to be done in Scottish football to move it forward, because I mean, look at the stuff that happened on the field with Rangers versus Hibs, goal line technology. We don't even have goal line technology in this country.
Which you got at me for when it happened to Celtic. Can I just
No,
say?
I know, but what I'm saying is like
You've been waiting months for that.
get it in the back burner, eh? All I'm saying is like you just look at that. You look at where I feel like as a league, it is a stagnant league. It is very stagnant, and it's like we're just so quick to shoot anything remotely forward thinking down. And okay, like you said, wasn't a well thought out, like structured, here's a 10-year plan. It was a comment of let's try and find something to look forward to improve the game overall. And so whether that's a British Cup or a Challenge Cup or whatever it is, like we need to do something.
Yeah, lots of people like the idea as well. Can you imagine if the like football or the country was run via the TikTok comment section? that'd be something else. So.
Yeah. Well, listen. Massive thank you to yourself for coming on, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
To all our listeners, you have been listening to The Boy and the Bear. You are able to email us your questions or complaints at theboyandthebear@gmail.com, or just jump on TikTok and say whatever you want to us. And please do follow us on Instagram at BoyBearPod. And these episodes are also live on our YouTube channel, which is The Boy Bear Podcast.
Celtic, 2 trophies. Aberdeen, 1 trophy. Rangers, no trophies. There's always good seasons.
God bless America. Let's bring it on.
Hail, hail.
Follow.
Till next time, boys. Cheers.
Peace. Is it Route 66 or is it Road 66?